Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the Skinny on Diet Soda. If you guys are new here, hello and welcome. My name is Becca, and I would absolutely love for you to subscribe if you are enjoying my videos. It means so much to me, and I would love to have you as a little part of my fam here on YouTube. But today's video is going to be all about diet soda. If you are new here, I do a whole Skinny series here on my channel where I basically pick a certain food product and basically just go through it from a nutrition standpoint, go through the label, the ingredients, and just kind of give you guys my 2 cents and also like point things out that you should pay attention to. And I actually have already done regular soda. I will link that video if you want to check that out as well. But I know a lot of people are huge diet soda drinkers. People love their Diet Coke. So in today's video, I'm going to be focusing specifically on the diet sodas. So the biggest perk of diet sodas would definitely be that they have no calories. They are all 0 calories and do not contain any sugar, just some other sweeteners, which we will talk in depth about. But that is definitely the biggest draw to diet sodas, because you can have your sweet, fizzy, caffeinated or decaffeinated, whatever you choose, drink without all of the added calories and added sugar that comes along with regular soda. When it comes to analyzing diet soda, personally, I think the biggest thing to talk about is the fact that they are artificially sweetened. Most sodas, except for, I believe, Pepsi, there may be a couple other ones out there, but most of them use aspartame in order to sweeten their diet sodas. So instead of using sugar, they will use aspartame. Pepsi, and again, there could be a couple others that I just don't know of, but Pepsi uses sucralose, which is like a newer artificial sweetener. Aspartame's been on the market for longer, but sucralose is also better known as Splenda. So Pepsi recently, within like the past few years, I think, I'm not totally sure on that, but they did switch from aspartame to sucralose. But regardless of what they're using, all diet sodas are artificially sweetened. So there is a big, a major debate about artificial sweeteners and their potential side effects, which I will get to in a second. But before I talk about kind of that argument, what I want to say that is, I think, one of the most important things to know about artificial sweeteners. I actually did a Skinny on video on artificial sweeteners. I didn't talk about aspartame specifically, but I did mention this in that video. And that is that most artificial sweeteners are actually a lot sweeter than sugar. They might be like a few hundred times sweeter than regular table sugar. So the potential problem with that is if you are a habitual Diet Coke drinker and every day you have, you know, however many Diet Cokes. So if you're constantly kind of bathing your taste buds in this like extra sweet, with this extra sweet sweetener, one of the problems with that is it can increase your cravings for sweet things. This doesn't happen in everyone, but I mean, if you think about it, if you're always drinking this extra sweet drink on a daily basis, it may make you crave sweets because you're used to having this really sweet thing every single day, and it may kind of creep into the rest of your diet and the rest of your life, and you may just be reaching for sweeter, sugar sweetened or artificially sweetened things more often. And another thing that can come out of this is if you are always bathing your taste buds in this extra sweet substance, when you do have something that is sugary, say you have like a piece of cake or some cookies or something like that, it may actually require you may be required to eat more because you need extra sweetness, you need more sugar in order to satisfy that sweet craving, because your sweetness threshold is pretty high because you're always drinking diet sodas and these sugary substances. So when you have a cookie, let's just say, that is sweetened with regular sugar, it may not quite get you up to that threshold. You may have to eat, 2 or 3 or however many cookies in order to get that threshold. So it could potentially increase your sugar cravings, potentially, and it could also just increase the amount of sugar that you need, or artificial sweeteners that you need, in order to reach that satisfaction threshold in other areas of your life, well, other areas of your diet. So that is what I think is one of the biggest problems, or maybe drawbacks would be a better word, for artificial sweeteners. But then next I want to talk about aspartame specifically, because there is quite the debate about aspartame and if it should be in our food supply. So one side of the argument is that aspartame is very dangerous and is linked to many different diseases or illnesses like diabetes, cancer, psychological disorders, autoimmune disorders, even birth defects or epilepsy. There is a lot of claims that aspartame is linked to causing these diseases. And I believe the culprit for these potential disease links is actually formaldehyde, because we can make formaldehyde in our body from consuming aspartame. So we do make formaldehyde in our body in certain processes naturally. It's not like it is a foreign substance to our bodies. So aspartame itself is actually made up of a phenylalanine and an aspartic acid or aspartate. So these are joined together, and when we consume them and we start digesting them in our digestive tract, they get broken down into their separate amino acids and also a methanol. So that methanol can then go on to form or become formaldehyde. So there's, you know, these people will say that having all of this aspartame if we're always drinking diet soda or whatever source we're getting our aspartame from, if we're constantly bringing this in and constantly, you know, able to produce formaldehyde, we may have elevated levels of formaldehyde and therefore at risk for a number of different diseases or illnesses. And then of course there is a whole other side to this argument saying that aspartame is safe and not linked to cause any of these kind of diseases. So the main reasons from what I gathered from my research as to why aspartame does not cause diseases, one of which is we produce formaldehyde in the body, like I already said, and a lot of researchers will say that we consume way more formaldehyde on our own than we could ever really take in, the average person would take in through consuming aspartame. So it's not really going to elevate our levels and make a difference. Another thing is that phenylalanine and aspartic acid are in other foods. They're naturally occurring in our food supplies. So, you know, if we are consuming these anyway, and potentially could make methanol and therefore formaldehyde from, you know, other sources, not just diet soda, then, you know, is the diet soda really the problem? So that's kind of like each side of the argument. So as it stands right now, aspartame is considered or deemed generally regarded as safe by the government to be used in foods and beverages. But one thing I do want to point out, which I think we should always keep in mind, and for any type of research, not just related to diet soda, is you always want to pay attention to, you know, who is funding these studies. So a lot of the studies that are used to back up the fact that aspartame use is totally safe and not linked to any diseases, a lot of them are industry funded, meaning these are soda companies saying, hey, do this research. And do you think they're gonna want a lot of negative research and a lot of research coming out that their product is actually bad and linked to disease? No, probably not. So always something to just keep in mind. I just feel like it's important that I do say that. The other artificial sweetener that is in soda, at least in Pepsi, is sucralose, aka Splenda, and that is like a very similar situation. I mean, research is saying that it's not definitively linked to disease, while other, you know, researchers will say there's definitely some correlation between consumption of these artificial sweeteners and, you know, different disease risks. So, I mean, it's pretty much in the same boat as far as what we were talking about with aspartame. But if you guys want to know my personal 2 cents, you know that I really like to err on the side of real food. I try and stay away from processed stuff or man-made, lab-made, that kind of stuff, because we just don't necessarily know. I mean, that really is the truth. Some people are claiming it's horrible while others are claiming it's safe. So, I mean, what do you really take from that? But I like to err on the side of real food and I guess caution. So I personally would not want to consume these, at least not on a regular basis. Aspartame was one of the biggest, has been one of the biggest artificial sweeteners used, and I believe it didn't come onto the market until like the 80s. So it's been, you know, almost 40 years, so ish. I don't know exactly what year in the 80s it came on the market. So it's been, you know, out there for a little while, but in the grand scheme of, you know, life, that's like not that long. So we don't really know. I mean, people who started drinking in the 80s, what is their health like today? Would it be different if diet soda, or I guess if aspartame or artificial sweeteners were never created? Who's to know? Something that is super interesting with diet soda consumption is that even though it is not sweetened with sugar, it actually is correlated. I mean, it's not a direct causation, but definitely correlated with higher rates of type 2 diabetes. So maybe, you know, there's no sugar in diet soda that is sending your blood sugar out of whack, but maybe if you're always drinking this really sweet beverage, it's, you know, creating more intense or just greater amounts of sugar cravings in your life, and you're gonna be reaching for sweet foods more often, so you are just more likely to be consuming sugar-laden things, and therefore that puts you at a risk for diabetes. Who really knows? But that's definitely interesting that even though it doesn't have sugar in it, it is still correlated with the development of type 2 diabetes. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, I personally like to err on the side of real and natural and not artificial. But one thing that is really important that I want to say here is, you know, you're hearing me say this, but I don't want you to think that I'm saying artificial sweeteners are really bad, so everyone should be drinking regular soda. No, not the case, because Sweetened, added sugar, especially sugar sweetened beverages because it's like pure sugar and water, basically, a few chemicals. That comes with its own slew of problems and side effects and, increase for disease risk. You can go check out my Skinny on Soda video to hear all of the details of all of the things that you should be aware of if you're going to drink soda, or if you are someone who already drinks it all the time, you may change your mind. So just because I am for real food does not necessarily mean I'm like all gung-ho real added sugar, because added sugar is kind of really scary and it's in everything and we really need to be careful of it. So when it comes to the soda debate, is diet or regular better? Honestly, they're both bad. Neither of them are a good choice for your health, and neither of them are something that I would personally consume. Okay, so now that that is all out of the way, I just wanted to mention one other quick thing. I went into more detail in my Skinny on Soda video about this fact, but I just want to throw it out there really briefly before we move on. And that is, there is a definite correlation with people who drink dark cola, so like brown sodas basically, and having lower bone density. It's not with any of the clear sodas or colored sodas other than brown. It just happens to be with the colas. So that is a very interesting fact. Again, I talk more in detail about that in the Skinny on regular soda video, but I just wanted to throw that out there so it was included in this video. But now I'm going to move on and just go through a couple different soda brands with you. We'll look at a few labels and a few ingredient lists and just kind of run through those so you can kind of get the gist of what is going on in there. So the very first one I'm going to look at is the cult favorite, Diet Coke. So of course our nutrition facts are basically zero everything, except there is 40 milligrams of sodium, and this is for a 12 ounce. All the sodas I'm looking at are all for a 12 ounce portion, bottle, whatever. Okay, so ingredients are carbonated water, caramel color, yikes, added color is not very good, aspartame, so there's our artificial sweetener, phosphoric acid, potassium benzoate, so that is like a preservative, natural flavors, citric acid, and caffeine. So we've got our artificial sweetener in there, we've got a couple other things, preservatives, some natural flavors, things like that, caffeine of course. And then moving on to Pepsi. Again, we have almost zero everything, 0 calories, fat, there's a little bit of sodium, 35 milligrams, no carbs, no sugar, no protein. The ingredients are as follows: carbonated water, caramel color, so far the exact same as Coke, phosphoric acid, potassium benzoate, so that preservative again, sucralose, so that is like Splenda, acesulfame potassium, which is another type of artificial sweetener, caffeine, natural flavors, and citric acid. So this one has 2 different types of artificial sweeteners, both the sucralose and the acesulfame K or potassium. And yeah, another preservative, some natural flavors, so nothing too real about this. The next one is Sprite Zero. So again, we are looking at basically no nutrition facts except for a little bit of sodium, 35 milligrams, which all of those are like pretty marginal. I wouldn't even really worry about that. I mean, if you're drinking like 30 sodas a day, then maybe it would turn into something, but I mean, it's a very small amount. As far as the ingredients go, we have carbonated water, citric acid, potassium citrate, natural flavors, potassium benzoate, aspartame, and then acesulfame potassium. So again, we've got that aspartame, which we talked about. Acesulfame potassium is also an artificial sweetener. We've got some natural flavors. There's also potassium citrate in there, which is an additive. I think that has to do with keeping like the pH balanced in the food product. So another additive that we haven't seen in the other ones. And then the very last one I'm going to look at is Mountain Dew. This was by far the worst of the regular sodas last time, so let's see how it holds up as a diet soda. So for a 12 ounce, we have 0 calories and pretty much 0 everything else with 50 milligrams of sodium, so slightly higher than all the others, but again, really marginal. So just looking at the ingredient list, it is way longer than all the other ones. We've got carbonated water, concentrated orange juice, citric acid, natural flavors, citrus pectin, potassium benzoate, aspartame, so there's that, potassium citrate, caffeine, sodium citrate, acesulfame potassium, another added or artificial sweetener, sucralose, another artificial sweetener, gum arabic, which is just a gum, sodium benzoate, calcium disodium EDTA, brominated vegetable oil, which is also in the regular one, weird, and yellow 5. So we've got multiple added or artificial sweeteners, we've got a few different preservatives, we've got color added, just like Pepsi and Diet Coke, although that was caramel color, this is yellow 5. brominated vegetable oil. We've got some gums in there, some pectins in there to thicken it up. So a lot more going on in this. So definitely by far the worst. I mean, to be honest, they're all bad choices as far as health goes and nutrition, but this is definitely the worst one. So in these videos, I do try and select like what would be the best out of the group that I kind of go through and analyze, but when it comes to soda, including diet soda, I mean, I just really can't recommend one. Like, they're all just not good choices when it comes to health. And there's definitely some controversy about the, you know, added sugars or artificial sweeteners. But you know me, I like to err on the side of real, natural food. And again, that doesn't mean that everyone should be drinking regular sugar sweetened everything, because that as well is bad, as well as high fructose corn syrup. So either way you slice it, diet or regular, it's just not a good choice. And you can really get addicted to these. So I mean, if you are someone out there who is addicted to diet soda or regular soda and you just can't seem to break the habit, it can be done, absolutely can be done. It can be cut out of your life, or at least diminished significantly, which would, you know, any way you can cut it down is beneficial in my opinion. If you can completely cut it out, it's way more beneficial, but you know, I understand that that may not be possible for some people. But what I will say is, think about why you do really like it. Is it because it's fizzy? Or is it because it's sweet? Or is it because it's caffeinated? Or maybe it's a mixture of all three. So just try and think about why you really like it, like what really makes you reach for it, and then try and find a healthier alternative that gives you that same benefit. So for example, if you just love like a fizzy carbonated beverage, maybe, I mean, this might be going a little off the deep end for some people, but kombucha is so good and it is completely carbonated and it is so fizzy and so delicious and satisfying. It definitely is not quite as sweet as sodas. It does have a little bit of a sweetness to it if you get like the flavored ones. But that is a really good like bubbly alternative that also is really good for your gut because it's fermented and it's actually doing something that's good for you other than just satisfying that fizzy carbonated craving you're having. Another thing is seltzer water, flavored seltzer water like LaCroix and all those fancy brands. I mean, those are way better than drinking soda, and it gives you that sweetness, maybe not quite as sweet, but definitely that sweetness and that bubbliness that you're looking for. And if you are drinking soda because you like the caffeine kick, you're obviously going to be way better off having just some tea or some coffee. Of course, you would want to watch how much you're sweetening it. No sweetener at all would be, whether it's real or artificial, would be, you know, like the best option. But coffee or tea is definitely going to be a healthier way to get that caffeine fix. Or just looking at like, why do I need caffeine in the afternoon or whatever time it may be? You know, is there things that I can adjust, maybe my diet or, you know, sleep patterns, or ways to just get around like that dip in the day where I just absolutely need caffeine. And some days you're gonna need it, but hey, maybe you can get to a point where you just don't really need it as nearly as much. It's not a crutch that you rely on every day. So I think when it comes to breaking these kinds of unhealthy habits or behaviors, it's just good to look at, you know, what is the reason surrounding why you do it, and instead of just trying to like cold turkey cut something out and just leave it out of your life, it may be easier to kind of like manipulate the situation and find ways to make you just not want the soda or whatever that crutch may be as much, and that makes it a much more smooth transition and also just a lot easier to get it out of your life because you're not just saying, oh, I can't have it and that's it. Instead, you'll be finding ways to make yourself just not want it or not need it. So that is all I have for this skinny video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it and I hope that you were able to learn from it. If you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe and be a part of my little community here on YouTube. It really, really does mean a lot to me. And of course, if you are not following me on Instagram and Snapchat, I would love to hang out with you on there as well. But that is all I have for today's video. Hope that you enjoyed watching, and I really hope to see you in my next video. Bye!